Stay tuned. You're about to embark on just a really fun conversation I had with Marc and Hyleri Katzenberg out of Connecticut and Florida, who talk about how they evolved in the real estate space and what they're doing to really separate themselves in the eyes of their clients. As always, I'm your referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Hyleri, Marc, thanks for joining me. This is going to be super fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. This is a part two. We've tried a couple times, had some weird, crazy technology issues.
But think about that though, Shawn. Thank goodness that technology isn't always perfect, because a lot of people would be unemployed if that were the case. So
it's true. I mean, and not for nothing in our businesses, it's all about being resourceful. It's
sure.
Like, if you're hitting a wall, it's fine. Our jobs is to figure out how to go over it, around it, through it, and whatever it takes.
Here we are. Well, if at first we don't succeed.
That's life, man. It's going through walls, or going around them.
Or throwing off shit against the wall, and some of it's going to stick.
I know. And with your background, Marc, I would love to explore that a little bit, because real estate's not your first career, and you have
well, you know what I'll say. It's my first career, but I wasn't an agent. I actually built lots of homes, but I lived in Palm Beach, and I had a restaurant chain called 2J's. It's pretty famous. I had a lot of restaurants, and
amazing.
I had about 1,500 employees. I was up at the crack of dawn, 7 days a week. I had restaurants all over the state of Florida, and I'd get up real early in the morning, and I was raising 7 kids on the island of Palm Beach on top of that.
Oh my goodness.
And it's interesting, at one of the retreats, I think it was the one in Miami, and they were talking about one of the seminars was on
relaxation,
on how, being a realtor and how tough it is, and the stress and all that. And I got up and said, I'll tell you what stress is. It's running 25 restaurants, raising 7 kids. I was building houses and flipping other houses.
You're basically telling everyone to stop whining.
Stop whining. I mean, this is absolutely the best job. I'm not saying it's not difficult, because especially in this environment, it's gotten even more difficult.
Yeah.
But, stop whining. And what was really fun, there were about, I think, 200 people at this. Afterwards, I was mobbed. Everybody wanted to know, how I spent my time and managed the kids and managed all the restaurants and all the employees. And, it's interesting. It's all in time management, whether it's selling real estate or running
and it's also getting your
and
systems, because with Marc's restaurant, he had a commissary, and everything went out from there. That was sort of like headquarters, and all the food was made there and went out in trucks and everything. And it's all about organization, management.
Yeah. And then I was building houses, and
because you didn't have enough to do.
I hated some of them were my best friends, but I hated them professionally. And I thought to myself, I never want to do this. I mean, these guys are all about the money. They're all about, I'm the one. I ended up selling most of my houses. I couldn't even get them to come over half the time. I was doing the showings, and I thought, I'm never going to do this.
Wow.
And then I met my wife, and I learned that there's more to real estate than, these guys in Palm Beach trying to sell you, trying to sell $5-10 million houses and barely showing up and not caring really about the buyer or the seller. And when I met Hyleri in Westport, Connecticut, I would go with her.
We were actually introduced through clients of mine who I have become very close friends with, and they were Marc's friends forever. And
I love that.
Palm Beach, yeah.
And she would go out and go take clients out, and I would say, let me tag along. I didn't have anything to do, and also I was worried about, how a lot of these young women realtors, they do.
He was concerned about my safety.
I was worried about her safety, and I would go with her, and she would show this family this house, and they would go, "Oh, Hyleri, this is our house. We love it." And Hyleri would say, I can't, in good consciousness, I can't have you buy this house. There's a Starbucks on the corner. Traffic is around the is runs in front of your house. It's right on a busy street. You have 2 young kids. You have a dog, and I would not suggest that you buy this house. And I'm a businessman. I'm thinking to myself, they just said they love this house, and sell it to them. That's not Hyleri.
Well, it's about being transactional versus relationship driven. And I think that was what he gained and learned from me and saw a different perspective, that I'm not a transactional agent. It's not about the transaction. It's about the long-term relationship. And it really made him look at this whole industry different. And in his own mind, all the agents that he had previously thought were annoying and didn't want to work with them and everything, he thought that's because they were transactional. And I needed someone that was relationship driven.
And this went on, and I went for 5 years. I didn't have a license, but I would go to her open houses, and I would go out
He's also got the gift of gab, which...
her clients. And I knew a lot of people. I mean, from my restaurants in Florida, Palm Beach and Boca Raton and Stewart and Jupiter. I mean,
And then he had a chain in Connecticut.
And then I had a chain of restaurants here when I...
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive.
And in China.
And then I sold that chain, and I went to China, and I opened up High Government were my partners, and I opened up for the Olympics in Beijing in 2008. I had 3 restaurants.
Incredible.
They wanted me to open up hundreds of restaurants, and unfortunately, I was...
Anyway, it did.
I was in the middle of a divorce, and I didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah.
But I had the time of my life, and I learned so much.
But it's interesting though, because business models, although business is business, and some industries are much more transactional. In a restaurant, you go there, you sit down, you eat, you're done, you pay your check, and not that there isn't some marketing involved and everything else, but in real estate, it's the biggest. It's not like buying a corned beef sandwich. I mean, it's the biggest investment people will make or will sell. And it's a huge trust factor. And I think, honestly, that's the number one component about being, a good realtor or doing well in this industry, is being trustworthy and being able to get that message across and being able to walk away or talk your clients out of a transaction that you think isn't good for them. We're constantly... I just told my client the other day that wanted to buy something. She's in California and she wants to buy something in Connecticut, sight unseen. And I said, it's way overpriced. I mean, she was ready to write up an offer. And I said, it's not a good investment. It's way overpriced. I got to redirect you.
So I had a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. We just sold it a few months ago. And I'd be down there and people would come in and they'd say, Mark, we love it down here. Do you know any realtors? I'm passing out cards. And all of a sudden I had an epiphany. What the hell am I doing? And I called Hyleri. She was in Connecticut. I said, you got to get your...
Do I know her?
I said, you have to get your Florida license. And I go down there on vacation. I'm not getting my license unless you get a license. Get off your fat ass and go get your real estate license. So I did.
But that's not exactly how it happened, because I actually did get my license before you and sold some things. And then I said, it was actually more during the pandemic that I was like insanely busy, and I was like, restaurants were
drowning,
and restaurants were closed, and I said,
true,
you're getting your license, you're doing this with me, I can
get
barely
off your ass, and
I was 24/7.
So I got my Florida license, and I was loving it because I know a lot of people, and between the two of us, the people I know, and all the flipping and the building that I did, so I added another component to it, and then Hyleri is, she's great at what she does.
Which is what?
That's a good question.
I want to know what exactly.
I love you guys.
You are, so I want to know which part you think I'm great at.
No, I mean she's great at closing deals. She's just great with people.
And he's great at closing doors. And
that's amazing.
Total
I mean, that's a great partnership. It's somebody is your complement, and they're great at everything that you're not.
You guys work together. We actually love it. We really compliment.
It sounds like it. I mean, if you worked with her for 5 years without even having a license and just being around it, it obviously sounds like you guys have an amazing relationship, which I love. And I really genuinely appreciate you having that paradigm shift of it's not just a transaction, but it's actually caring about these people, not today and tomorrow, but these years to come, and how they're going to experience this home that
Which I
they're
think
going to
a lot of
establish.
people have, and especially now with this whole NAR settlement, a lot of people have a a thought or an idea of what real estate
Well,
agents
they have a
are, that they're
cockeyed
like,
view of what we do.
well, but then some, and look, I'm not going to say that, some agents, there's good and bad in every profession. And I guess your experience previously had not been great,
Oh,
and
it was awful.
and
And I'm these are my good friends too, and just professionally, I just said, oh, what a horrible profession.
And
Um,
I feel that's really what's going to separate us in the future, is those agents who don't have that, who are missing that component of actually really genuinely caring about what these people are going through and what their decision is ultimately going to be.
well,
I feel that's going to be the deciding factor moving forward of who not just survives in this business but thrives for the years to come.
ultimately, it's a referral business, and the way that Kelly
100%.
looked at it was, hopefully, I'm going to sell these people another house in 5 years. I'm going to sell their house. I'm going to find them another house, and I am going to work really hard to make sure that I put them in the right place to begin with.
otherwise I'm going to be
Yeah.
stuck selling a turkey.
Yeah. So,
That's that was my shift. Additionally, is I would tell people, listen, when it comes time to sell this, here are the challenges you are going to face. Meaning, these are the problems you're buying. So let's acknowledge these now. And I do the same thing. I'm like, I wouldn't recommend it, because the feedback is going to be, it's on a busy corner. It has this, and I don't know how to list it out. And I'm very upfront. And I remember when I started in the business, in my second transaction, so like money's running out, I need the money. And I remember talking my clients out of buying a fixer because they
And
were
I can
expecting
see
a
that.
baby. They
We,
were expecting a baby. They worked full time. They were spread thin. And I was like, I think you like the idea, but I don't think you understand the reality. Let me walk you through what that experience will be like. And then maybe 3 days later, they sent me this long email thanking me for guiding them out of that property.
It's it's so important when you're transacting on such a high level. Buying a shirt is a no-brainer. If you buy the wrong one, you've got plenty of them. But when you're transacting at such a high level on such a important asset, it's really
Yeah.
important that you trust the people that you're putting that decision. I mean, we have people coming from out of state all the time that don't even know what town to buy in, or what areas are going to be easiest for them. And we have to
So
really
true.
kind of educate them more than anything. And an educated buyer is the best kind of buyer, because then it's sort
Yeah.
of informed consent. And ultimately the couple that Mark was talking about did end up buying that house, but at least they I went on record,
Yeah.
and I'm still very close with them, and they've referred other business to me. They
but
wanted that
they
house, but they went
appreciated
in
it.
with their eyes open, understanding that
That's what it is.
it's not going to be such an easy resale. And the
I
biggest question too, first, when I have a new buyer, is how long do you see yourself in the property? Because it's really an
Yeah.
important part of the decision. If somebody thinks this is for a lifetime, generational, um, you can amortize any sort of loss. It costs to live somewhere, even if you were going to rent. And then you
It's
can
true.
have more control over the market that you sell in than if you see yourself for 5 years. It might get caught in a buyer's market and lose a lot of money because
Of course,
it's
now
not.
we're in an area where there's basically no inventory. You
Same.
have millennials coming out of the city that want to move to Westport. Westport, Connecticut's been ground zero for a lot of the millennials since the pandemic coming. And most of these millennials, they don't want to hear about septic. They don't want to hear about anything. They want to move into a house, a brand new house with a toothbrush.
Turnkey.
And they don't care if it's on a busy corner. I mean, the fights for these houses
Well, it's all about supply and demand.
is
And obviously,
unbelievable. So
right now the demand is really high and the supply is low, and it's economics 101. I do think that most challenging thing, and we had a whole long conversation, including with my sales manager yesterday at an open house that we had, a broker's open house, is all this NAR settlement talk. And, really trying to explain it. People are still so misguided and confused. And, my seller I had to explain that it doesn't really matter what you're offering the buyer's agent. That's only an incentive, because at the end of the day, if someone's represented by a buyer's agent, they've already agreed with their agent what the commission will be.
Exactly.
Well, it's a question of where it comes from, what pot. It's all semantics, because it's either coming from the purchase price and, it's going to come, and then the buyer can amortize it into the loan, or the buyer's going to pay you less if it's a cash deal. And it's
the buyer's paying for it either way is the reality. And it's either coming out of bucket A or it's coming out of bucket B.
Settlement of all time. I mean,
it's semantics, and it's actually making it less transparent, because before the buyer's agent commission was on the MLS. Now it's kind of the wild, wild west. And if the buyer's agent isn't what the buyer's agent has already contracted with the buyer, they're not working for free. It's coming from somewhere. Sellers are gonna see it in the offer. They're gonna see it in the offer. So,
and here's the part that actually completely just pisses me off, is in California they now issued that the buyer shouldn't have to commit for a long duration with their agent. So we have a maximum of 3 months, which is crazy, because as a fiduciary, I'm guiding them to be committed into a 30-year mortgage, but I can only work with them for 3 months.
They can't go back to you after 3 months?
No, they can.
They can re-up, but
it's not.
But as we know, most buyers take, especially in a tight market, it's 6 to 9 months for them to purchase. And so now I have to keep going back to them and re-upping this paperwork, which is, it's actually the opposite of what it's intended to do. It's actually now becoming a disservice for the buyer themselves.
Yeah.
And then
I think there's going to be a lot of evolution and fine-tuning.
There has to be.
Because there's so much that wasn't thought through when this, and lenders are still not amortizing buyer's agent, fees. So if a buyer does pay it out of pocket, and a lot of sellers don't understand that if it's not written in as a seller concession, then, if somebody's getting financing, and it's so hard to get, for a first-time home buyer to enter the market anyway at this point. They've been saving for a home. Prices have gone up. Interest rates are higher, even though they just went down a little bit, but they're still, elevated compared to what they were, a couple of years ago.
I agree.
And prices are so high that most buyers are kind of like, this is what we can afford. And they haven't really budgeted that, oh gosh, and then we're going to pay our buyer's agent all this money too on top of it. They just can't unless they can amortize it into their loan. And
the largest disservice that I see happening is for that, let's say that single parent who has a couple children, they've scrimped and scraped, they have 5% down, they found an FHA loan that will facilitate. Oh, and now, by the way, you have to out-of-pocket this additional money. And now they're totally stuck. And that's where, for those people who have the dream but not the means, they're penciled out of the equation. And I think that's a complete travesty, which was completely it wasn't thought through. The person who's buying the second home at $8 million, it's not even in the conversation. They don't worry about it.
Yeah, for sure.
They already have other assets. It's fine. And they see and understand the value of having a fiduciary, and it's a completely different conversation. And so it's really genuinely, I feel in my heart.
That is crazy. I did not know that about the California law for 3 month signing. That's
plus
insane.
In LA, if the house is over $5 or $10 million, that you have to pay a mansion tax on that on top of it.
Here's the other beautiful one they just passed, which is another brilliant. In San Francisco, let's say you buy the home and then you decide to remodel, obviously it's going to be vacant. They're going to hit you with a vacancy tax.
Oh,
it's really it's become a game of whack-a-mole and incredibly challenging for just people in general. So
we're doing a
and it sounds like your granddaughter arrived.
Walking by, we just needed to say a quick hi.
You know, I get a kick out of the interest rates because my first interest rate was 18%. No, 17%. And I bragged about it because all my friends were getting 18%.
In the 80s, right?
Yes. So things are so skewed.
That dates him a
and
lot.
that 2% and 3%.
I was graduating high school. 80.
Sorry to date you. I didn't mean to. I apologize.
But you know, the 2-3% kind of killed the market at the end of the day, because
we're never going back there again.
We're never going back there, and nobody wants to give that up.
But then, of course, people that are sitting on it, you know, the interesting thing is that every 5 years in Fairfield County, Connecticut, they reassess property taxes. So think about it. Next year,
brutal.
In the towns of Greenwich, Westport, Fairfield, they are going to reassess the taxes again. The last time, that's 2025. So the last time they were reassessed was in 2020. And, you know, market values were very different then. That was just going into the pandemic. And we hadn't had the adjustment yet. Now they're way up. And there's going to be a lot of people that I think will have sticker shock. And when they're, you know, with the new market value and their new property tax bill. And I think, you know, it may cause people that are sitting on 3% to say, okay, this is a good rate, but now that our property taxes have gone so high, maybe we're willing, now it's time to sell. So it'll be interesting to see.
One can hope. But we originally got our license in Florida thinking,
you did.
Thinking that we could take our clients up here in Connecticut that want to sell and move to Florida. Now we're getting some resistance with that because of the hurricanes. We're on the East Coast and we really haven't been affected. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen to the market.
To the Florida real estate market.
Florida market.
You know, I think people have a short memory.
I said it's 20 degrees here. I mean, you know, it's...
Enough for nothing. My dad, 2 of his siblings moved to Florida from Connecticut. They're kind of peppered around. My dad's in Cocoa Beach, and he's had a bunch of properties probably for the last 20 plus years. And then this most recent property, they've been there. I think they've been there for about 10 years or so.
So Shawn, what brought you to Northern California since you grew up in the Nutmeg State?
I'm not really 100% sure. But when I was younger, I just always wanted to be in a city, and I got married young, unfortunately, and then divorced. Lesson learned.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I got my badge. I got my card in the mail for that.
Most people want to be a member.
This is number 4 for me.
He's like the president of the club.
Somebody has to be. And when I was married, we actually looked at Boston. We went to New York a couple times, and for her, it wasn't a good fit. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And then when I was a kid, I had a pen pal. This is really weird, in San Francisco.
That dates you too.
It does. A pen pal. Imagine that.
I remember that. Jeez.
And then, you know, we were kind of sitting down and looking at a map, and we're like, California seems cool. Both of us never been. We're like, let's go to San Francisco. And we literally 3 months later packed up and moved. And that was
San Francisco. I think it's a great
20 years ago. And I've been here ever since.
Is it as gnarly as they said it's been lately? I mean,
in what way?
The homeless and a lot of retail closing and hotels.
It's definitely changed for sure. But I don't know how much it's changed versus how much I've changed. You know, because
because if one side isn't a constant, it's hard to really evaluate the other.
Yeah, and my values in my 20s are very different. I'm a couple of years from 50, so my values now are very different, and so my perspective is proportionally very different. And so I question that one a lot. Is like, did I change or did it change? But I also, it's a heavy blue city. And so it's all the red newspapers who just love to crap on it.
Well, yeah,
I'm not
that's all I'm
saying we're,
asking, since you're at ground zero, what's the
it's
like?
parts. There's definitely parts of the city that are have been impacted harder. This city is the whole footprint is only 7 by 7 miles, so it's pretty small,
Yeah.
and there's
Are
not a
you in
lot
the
of.
city, Sean? Are you in the city of San Francisco?
I actually live. We live in the East Bay. We live in Alameda, which is it's just over the bridge. It's a little island. That's it's super cute.
Next to Oakland, right?
It's right next to Oakland.
Yeah.
We have two boys. The youngest is actually in his senior year, and so I moved here so they didn't have to disrupt their schools and friends and all that. And then when the youngest graduates, we're moving, and so I'm
So
just
you're
counting the
close.
days.
So you're close.
Yeah, I'll definitely miss both of them when they're both in
Well, I'll
college.
tell you,
But
I mean,
It's,
San Francisco and especially Oakland is getting terrible press.
by the way,
it,
trust me, you won't miss
they
them
do.
too much because they come back a lot, and then with their laundry, and then like our kids now, they're dropping off the babies, the grandkids. So
Love it.
it's pretty wonderful.
That's what Cielo's looking forward to. She's really looking forward to the grandkids
Wow.
at some point.
We're in heaven. I love having grandkids.
I
We've got
I love the grandkids more than I told my kids more than I ever loved you guys.
Well, there's no rules, right? You get to like feed them candy and then send them home.
it's yes to everything. Yes
Yeah.
to everything. Nani, can I come to your house and watch junk?
And then we get the kids,
Yes, of
our
course.
kids going, wait, you're ruining them. Okay, then don't drop them off here. I mean,
It's our prerogative.
That's how my mom was like that with my nieces, and my nieces have the most phenomenal relationship with her because of that. And it was so sweet to see. But my mom was like a vegetarian literally my whole life. We had no sugar in the house. It was like really strict. And then I'm like, you're feeding them M&Ms. Like, what happened? And she's like, they like it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, I want to say that I was so sorry for the loss of your mom. I saw that you recently lost
Thank
her.
you.
And, it's nice to tell these great stories. I know my mother, too,
Yeah.
was a wonderful Nana, and my kids used to call and tell on me. They'd call my mother and tell on me. So, be careful what you wish for, because
Yeah.
now it's my turn.
my mother taught my kids how to play poker,
How to get high.
how to get high, how to send it in the mail. I mean, my mother
She
was.
said you wrap it in tin foil between two slices of bread like a sandwich. His mother almost got kicked out of assisted living because of the big bong and
Oh my
on
God.
the table.
Yeah.
Oh, your mom sounds amazing.
They adored my mother.
I bet. She was like the rule breaker 101 right
Oh
there.
God, yeah,
Definitely.
totally. But
That is
yeah, it's fun to be in this stage. We read to my granddaughter's class the other day, and my little granddaughter Kaya says to Mark was driving my daughter's car behind us, and Kaya and Carly and I were in another car, and she goes, Nani, call Poppy on the phone. And I said, he's right behind us. She goes, no, call Poppy on the phone. I have a Poppy bellyache. And I said, what's a Poppy bellyache? And she goes, I miss Poppy. Of
Oh,
course,
that is so sweet.
You just melt.
wraps him around.
Oh, I love that you have
Or
that.
she had a toy store bellyache, which meant that she needed to go to the toy store. So we're all about fixing those bellyaches, however.
Whatever it takes. You're like, I got this.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so great. I kind of want to go back, Mark, with 1,500 employees, and obviously that's a crazy payroll.
He doesn't want to go back to 1,500 employees.
No, not to say that you do, but clearly you have to have systems in place. Like there's zero way you can scale.
I opened my first
grew.
restaurant in 1980 in Palm Beach. I had no idea what I was doing, and I had no money, had no idea what I was doing, and it's a pretty famous story in Florida about how this all happened. I got a miracle. I was closing the place on a Sunday, and this was Friday. We were closing on Sunday. We'd been open 3 weeks. I had no more money left.
But he opened in the middle of summer in Palm Beach in a shopping plaza where he couldn't even put signs up. So
my parents came down. They saw my location. My mother cried and told me I was a moron. and to come back to Philadelphia, which is originally where I'm from. And 3 weeks in, it's Friday, we're going to close the doors. And the Palm Beach Post every Friday does a review. There was an anonymous restaurant reviewer, and the headline on the page was "Best Lunch I've Ever Eaten." We went from literally closing the doors on Friday to holy crap.
To how many restaurants now?
Well,
it's been.
But then the New York Times a month later, they did a whole insert on Florida and restaurants in Florida, and they talked about all these, the Forge in Miami and all these fancy restaurants. And at the end of the article said, these two reviewers will drive 60 miles out of their way for the best corned beef pastrami sandwich we've ever eaten. And we literally went from closing doors to weighing the cash every Friday. And I mean, it was
back in the day.
Back in the day,
paid cash.
Incredible.
It was insanity. And then from there, we just kept opening them. And
that's
I kept
amazing.
learning as we went along. And then I opened up in Chicago, and I opened up in the Hamptons, and I opened up in Washington, D.C. And it became, if you Google 2Js, it's TOOJY''S. It's still there. As a matter of fact, I might be trying to buy it back because they're running it into the ground. But it really was quite a story. And then, when you reach a certain amount of restaurants, we were able to form a management company. So I had a management company. I gave general managers pieces of the business.
And then the commissary.
I had to have an HR person. I had a commissary. We had marketing people. And all of a sudden, this became a real business. And then it's still an institution
There's
today.
23 stores now?
Yeah, the one that I opened in Palm Beach 40-some years, almost 45 years ago, is still open.
With some of the same wait staff still there.
That's incredible.
And
that's always a testament of leadership.
It's really pretty
he also
incredible.
had opened in Washington, D.C., Chicago, the Hamptons, all over. And then
When it was so funny, I opened up a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, totally different type of restaurant, with a couple partners in Westport. And we opened up on Las Olas Boulevard. And I said to my partners, wait to see how many people come to meet me. And they all went, yeah, okay. They're all big restaurants.
you got to show our the logo.
They're all big restaurant guys. And there was an article in the Sun Sentinel in Fort Lauderdale about Marc Katzenberg opening up this restaurant, the former founder of 2J's. My partners were in shock. I mean, for the opening week, at least 300 to 500 people came down. They wanted to take pictures with me to show their parents and their grandparents.
And it's pretty famous in the Florida area.
It's a real institution.
And people are like they met a celebrity. They're like, oh my God, you're the owner of 2J's? No way. Like the original, they get stargaze, starry-eyed.
Hillary went out on a listing agreement and in Westport, and the mother was there. And the mother said to Hillary and her daughter, who's selling the house, said, we will give you the listing if Mark will give us the recipe to the 2J's tuna salad.
Get the listing.
That's an amazing
I sort of gave him the recipe.
Sort of.
Left a couple things out.
But it's interesting. We both come from
hilarious.
such different backgrounds to this.
Yeah.
And, we've learned a lot. And we do divide and conquer, fortunately. He's really great at running around and doing the showings, and I do the marketing and I write up the offers and negotiate offers, and we've really sort of found our niche within this. Not that we both, well, I was going to say not that we both can't do what the other does, but you really have never learned how to do what I do.
I cannot. I mean, it's so complicated, writing.
He's so resistant. Like, he will not learn how to write.
It's the one time I can say I'm old.
Well, it goes back to the restaurant. For a restaurant to run efficiently, everybody's got to stay in their lane, and clearly you two figured out your lanes.
I definitely am. I bear both lanes. Like, he will only. It's kind of like old dog, no new tricks for this old dog here.
It's very
and I'm the youngin, so
what an amazing story, though. That just that tipping point that you were able to
But I will tell you
get
something
to.
else. So the last house I built in Palm Beach, I think I had about 2 million into it, and I would build these houses, move my family in, and then find another property, and then we'd move out. Like I was always moving, building up equity in these homes. So the last house I sold for, I think it was before I moved out of Florida.
what year? What preface it with? What
I
year
think it was about 1999 or 2000, and I sold this house for a little under $4 million, thinking, wow, I did really well with this.
What'd you buy it for?
Well, it was I had all in about $2 million. It's a gorgeous house. I mean,
So you made almost $2 million of equity.
yeah, and I
mean,
thought,
profit.
boy, this is great. That house is now on the market for over $25 million.
My
I
God.
built a house in the north end of the island of Palm Beach, sold it in
Wild.
1990 for $1.1 million, practically begging the guy to buy it. It was another beautiful house, but north end, way at the end of the island, which typically they were hard to sell those houses. That house is on the market for like 14 million. Built in
Incredible.
Palm Beach
1999.
has gotten insane.
It's
gotten-
insane. Parts of
yeah.
Florida, it's still insane. I mean, absolutely insane,
Yeah.
even with the weather, the hurricanes, and all this stuff.
But everything's cyclical. I mean, it's
True.
and we'll be in Florida for December and January and part of February, and that's high season there. So
Yeah.
we'll see that. And I mean, now it's hurricane season, and
But it's fun.
Yeah, and
It's fun selling in both places. It keeps things interesting for us.
I mean they're completely different, completely different markets,
seasons.
different properties, different
when the market's hot down
profiles.
there in the winter, it's dead here. So it's nice that they're
Yeah.
And the other good thing
opposite
is
markets.
I know Florida like nobody else. I mean, I had restaurants in 25 different towns. So it's been good, and Hillary's starting to learn her way around parts of Florida. Yeah. So
That's great.
yeah, we have fun doing that. We really do.
Although I'm glad to hear you say that, because when we're down there, you always tell me that I couldn't find my way around the corner if I.
I don't know.
I get lost everywhere. I'm
And your
terrible.
wife, does she know the difference between north, south, east, and west?
I'm not even going to touch that one
Thank you.
Oh,
because she'll hear this podcast and then I'm going to get an earful.
Yeah.
I
oh my
actually,
God, you
it's
come out of our parking lot in Florida. If you make a right, you're in Jupiter. If you
Okay.
make a left, you're in West
That's
Palm Beach.
what-
She goes, which way do I go?
That's what GPS is for, baby.
that's what's funny is I've become so reliant on GPS. My internal compass is garbage. I'm always like, wait, where is this?
I know.
Well,
When I
never had an internal compass, so it was,
but I'm part of Compass, so there's that.
yeah, there's that.
You're like, I bought into it,
Yeah,
so I have it.
I have stock in Compass.
Right.
So I will say that when I first started selling real estate, I was 18. I was licensed in Ohio, which is where I grew up. And my mother had a brokerage firm. She was also an attorney and very busy, had 4 kids, which I was the oldest. And I got my license and I was in college at UCLA, but I'd come home summers and sell. And I really had to think outside the box in order to, sell at such a young age and win people's confidence. That's another story, and I think I've told it on here before. But that being said,
That was a great story.
that was in a day and age where there was no GPS, there was no internet,
No,
there were
was
no cell
horse
phones,
And, horse and wagon,
There were
horse
no-
and buggies.
there were no cell phones. I mean, literally, people would come to your office and they had these huge books that came out
Yeah.
like every week of what the inventory was. It was good and bad. I mean, in that way, it was a real captive audience. There was no Realtor.com or Zillow. The only way people knew what was on the market was if they came to our office and looked through the books and picked out. But I remember, using triptychs and maps and all those, drawing directions to get from one to the other. There were no key boxes. We had to go to real estate offices before we showed and pick up all the keys and then drop them all off again. And if you got lost, there was no GPS, there was no cell phone to call and say you're running late.
I can't even
Yeah,
announce her finding
you
her.
just
I managed. I did.
I don't know how you did it.
I did. But
and I think what's interesting within that is both of you clearly have that entrepreneurial spirit of, I'll just figure it out. Like, I haven't done this before, but I'll figure it out. And then, fast forward to today where you can find every property on your phone and submit an offer while you're standing in the property that you're showing. And so the value prop for us as agents has completely shifted. And that goes back to the early part. It then really becomes about being the fiduciary, but having a really strong relationship. Not that you're best friends with your clients, but there's a bond where they actually trust your guidance. And I feel that's truly going to be our currency going forward. And it's not dissimilar from a restaurant. That currency was the quality of the food and the consistency of the experience every time they went back to get their favorite meal.
Changed, by the way.
With Yelp and...
It's not only that, but employees. I mean, when I first started out, I had amazing employees. Sort of none of us didn't really knew what we were doing, but we figured it out. And they stuck by me for years and years and years. And then I opened up this restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, and I had a busboy who left us in the middle of dinner because down the street they offered him like 50 cents more. And that really, I went, oh my God, I mean, is this what this has come to? There's no loyalty, there's no, and I've always been of a mind to take care of my employees, to take really good care of them and pay them more money. And the world has changed. I mean, it has changed so much, and there's no pride anymore. I mean, in our business.
You sound like my dad when you talk.
But there is.
It was like, our parents that would go, the world has changed so much, and in my generation, you think that's dating you, honey.
My mom would always do that and tell me I'm number one.
But it has,
and it's clearly an East Coast thing.
but things have changed. The real estate business is changing. The restaurant business, retail is changing. I mean, I mean, have you ever gone to?
It's like back to Shawn saying he doesn't know if he's changed or the world has changed, and you really should think the same thing too. I think as we change, our perspective of the world around us changes, and part of it is too. I really believe that you can't be a wise person until you get older, because the difference between being smart and being wise is learning. Wise people learn from their experiences.
Yeah. Well, they learn from their mistakes, and you have to make them.
That's when you learn the most, from having made
those pain is the best teacher.
Exactly. I used to always tell my children, I am not perfect. I'm probably the most fallible person I know, but I definitely know more than you do, and I'm motivated by love, and that's all you can do, right? I'm a huge. I firmly believe that pain is the best teacher, and the best way to learn the stove is hot is burn your hand once, and then you are wise because you've experienced it, and you can talk from your own. You could speak from your own experience rather than lecturing or. I love when people that when I was a young mom and people that didn't have children would tell me, this is what you should do and this is what you should do, and it's hard to respect somebody that hasn't been there, done that, and speak from experience.
It's funny, you remind me, Grayson, the young one, plays guitar, and we sat down to restring his guitar. We sat down to restring his guitar, and I'm like, okay, try this, and he's like, well, what's going to happen? I'm like, I don't know, let's find out. It's exploratory, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll make a mistake, and that's great, because then you can go, okay, I won't do that on the next string. I got a few more to go. Yes. And you learn, but you have to. I agree. The environment has to be. I think you have to do unsafe things in a safe way, right? Like riding a motorcycle is unsafe, but if you put on the helmet and all the safety gear, you're doing the unsafe activity, learning from it, but you are doing all you can to protect yourself. Same with business. It's like we're always putting ourselves at risk. We're always trying new things, but if you do it in a safe way, you'll gain a ton of experience to build that second place, to put in that third restaurant.
Your sense of self-worth and confidence comes from
100%.
Trying again after you failed. I mean, show me any successful person and they'll have, maybe hundreds of failures behind them, and it looks so easy because they're in that spot and they're successful. I mean, I think
My kids all wanted, Dad, how did you do it? Because I moved to Florida with basically $300 in a credit card. How did, and in today's world, it's much harder to do what I did. I mean, it was very hard what I did. I mean, I literally, I lived in an apartment in Florida that you wouldn't put a dog in. I went from leaving a business in Philly, going down to Florida with nothing, and building up this business. And along the way, I made so many mistakes. I mean, I just along the way, and I learned over I mean, I still make mistakes.
you do.
Not many.
I just hide them better.
It does not.
It's interesting. You're reminding me. A friend of mine was, is it the aficionado for a wedding, and had never done it before for two other friends, and so went to his priest and said, "Hey, I'm doing this. What do you recommend?" And he's like, "You're going to make mistakes. The difference between new people and experienced people is how fast they recover." And so just acknowledge you're probably going to slip up a word or two, just recover and keep going. And I feel like as
I don't know anyway, I mean, unless it's a huge mistake.
Well, in real
or
estate,
intentional.
it can be a huge mistake.
Sure.
That could
I
be
agree with that.
the biggest mistake you make in your life,
Well,
or the
I
most
think
expensive
right,
one.
and in that instance too, you should never fake what you don't know, because that could be very costly.
Well, I think my early real estate manager, she said, before you do something, just ask. The biggest mistake that like more seasoned agents make is they think they know the correct answer. And that's where they really get into deep trouble. So it's just like, just stop and ask. Like there's other professionals all around you.
I lead a team of it's been gone from 8 to 6 to 7, so right now we're 6, and
Well, 7 if Laura.
so over the course of the years that I've been the team leader, I have to say I've watched some agents make some really, really bad mistakes that
Really
could
bad.
have easily been avoided. I mean, one agent in particular that, a really good kid, and he had somebody sign a listing agreement. It was a family friend of his, and he only put in the side that he thought he was, supposed to put in that he was getting for the list side. And when it came down to it, I had to say, we'll call him Tom, wasn't his name, but, look, you can't make anything on this deal if you have to pay a buyer's agent, because that was when it was still on the MLS.
Yeah.
You have to, and I said, and he was very lucky that there was no buy side on it, and he was able to do it, but it cost him, he would have gotten like 5%, and he was lucky that the deal went that it was 2% just because he didn't ask. And
Fun fact, I did the same identical thing.
Oh, God.
However, I went to my manager and I said, "Hey, can you proof this before I leave for my appointment?" And she goes, "You do realize that you basically cut it in half and you put it on the wrong line." I literally made but that was the difference is before I brought it out the door, I just had somebody double check it.
Well, and our sales managers have to sign listing agreements, not team leaders. So, I had told all my, team members always, come to me. I'm available all the time. Any question, if you're in a rush. I mean, I go to listing pitches with them, and I'm a very hands-on team leader, but he, didn't run it by me, and the sales manager signed it and didn't flag it, and it really bit him, and he really learned the hard way, and that was one of the most costly.
$100, he never does that again.
Oh yeah.
In California, we're a contract to close. We don't use attorneys, and so the agent has to, like, all the documents and contracts are set for us. We just have to choose the right ones, but you still have to fill them in correctly.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of spots. There's a ton of places for error. Like, for example, on a buyer's offer on the contract, there's a little box down below that says subject to the attached counter. And you have to put a little X in that box.
Because otherwise,
you know how many times that's been missed? It's like little tiny things like that. And just taking your time, having a system.
Yeah. Well, I am glad, especially being, having junior, team members. I'm really glad that we're an attorney state, that it's not. But, Florida also, you go straight to contract in Florida, which worked for us because when I bought our condo, it was during the pandemic, sight unseen, and I knew that it was underpriced. And I saw it go on, and it grabbed it the minute it came on. And
love it.
I went straight to contract, and I gave the seller an hour to accept, and then held my breath. He accepted because I offered full price because it was under market value to begin with, and I knew I was going to gut it anyhow. And then he got 4 better offers, and I was so grateful. That
Good job.
Oh God, did he try to get out of it?
In Connecticut, you would sign a binder.
And binders are not really, it's like a promise ring. It's not like really binding. So you can still go
interesting.
out of it. There's all kinds of contingencies, but he was under contract and
he hated it. Oh, did he hate us?
But
I've had that happen. I'm actually under contract on an off market. My client, they listed it for 153. My client wrote at 151. They renegotiated up a little bit. And then the neighbor's property, same profile, same 2-bedroom, 2-bath, just went under contract for the high 19s.
wow.
And we have all of our contingencies, and I'm like, I'm just waiting for the agent to call me to try to start squeezing us out.
Wow. Do they have any finance contingency? Has it been appraised? Or?
So it was off market. So we had a lot of breathing room, and it wasn't off market. Let me rephrase. It was oncoming soon.
I see.
That's legally accepted. And so because of that, we were able to pencil in literally every single contingency under the sun and then some.
I had a coming soon listing here in Greenwich, and we got offers right away, accepted an offer, and then, the guy came in the house and he's like, I can see the parkway. I don't want it. And I got fined for accepting an offer when it was coming soon.
Oh, jeez.
I
Really?
kind of had thought if the offer closed, it was a $6 million+ house. I thought, all right, find me a couple $100. It's worth it anyway. The property had been on the market with another agent before that, and was, had some reasons that it wasn't such an easy sale. So I thought, okay, that's fine. Not so fine when someone backs out of it.
Yeah, that's when it hurts. That's nice though. A couple hundred. We get fined a couple thousand.
Yeah, I think the fines have gone up since then, and I did.
Ours are so aggressive.
Yeah.
Ours are like gnarly out here.
Speaking of which, what are your thoughts on clear cooperation? I know that our CEO Robert Refkin is very against it. I saw that the some other CEOs of broker firms have come out. The other.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it, you step back and objectively look at it, it does not serve both parties. It's if a seller, let's say they want a discreet sale, let's say they're getting divorced and they're higher profile, and they just don't want their name plastered everywhere, but they want to quietly sell the property. You're now forcing their hand to put it in public spotlight. Like that's not.
I mean, you do private exclusives, but then they're barred from the MLS if it doesn't.
Correct. So they're shooting themselves in the foot, and so I just think it's not. From like the seller's perspective, it doesn't serve them, right. And so it to be honest, it came about because the top 20% of agents were trading everything out from everybody else, and so everybody was getting butthurt about it, and which was really about the agents and not the client.
Well, it also hurts the MLS business model if you're starting to sell a lot of things off that don't go on MLS, then their business models, and Zillow and their ability to sell those leads
and the seller's really losing out not being on MLS.
No, but the point being with clear cooperation is that they're not. It just really depends. Not everybody wants to be. I mean, look what we're doing with that property in Greenwich that's off market. They want to be off market, but there's so many rules and ways that we can't promote it. And I know it'll sell quickly if I could really
they're shooting
promote
themselves
it.
in the foot. They'd get a lot more money.
But they're prerogative, but not with clear cooperation. It hurts. It hurts.
Additionally, I don't think the MLS is also. I personally, I don't think in every category they're serving their agents the best they can either. Like, not for nothing, but we spend all our money to generate photos, to create amazing copy, to put together these profiles, and then they give it away for other companies to sell our information for their own gain.
And not only that, we can't even have any sort of logo. I mean, I went out and paid for these photos and this video,
which is silly.
And I can't have my logo on
It's
there.
so silly.
Right.
And so in California, they say you can't do anything related to real estate unless your license is associated with your name. Okay. But then on the other breath, you're telling me I have to put it here, but then I can't be associated with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, antitrust lawsuits that should happen with MLS stuff, because you're right, it's a resale thing. It goes 100%. Out to Zillow, it goes out to Realtor.com, it goes out to all these other
who things. Sells our content.
Exactly, my listing to leads for another buyer agent that doesn't even know the listing, hasn't promoted or whatever, and I'm helping them do that, because by going on MLS, I can't show myself as the listing agent. That these other, when it goes out to the third parties.
It's absurd.
And my thought is and this gets overlooked, but there's 2.5 million agents in the U.S. Imagine if we unionize. Like, imagine if we actually got together and we're like, hey, we need an organization to serve us.
Get that started.
Let's go.
There's an agent I think this isn't my idea.
Is Cesar Chavez still alive?
This is being recorded, so I'm going to have a bullseye on my back.
I agree with you. It's about time. I mean, I really think, NAR's had its issues and
little stuff.
To be sort of our, advocate, but, they're
it goes back to you, Mark, when you were starting your business, you had $300 in your pocket. That's a lot of agents start like that. And now, you have to go find healthcare. Oh, right. You're independent. You're an independent contractor, so now you have to pay double the fee. It's like, why don't we have our own organization where we can get that at a better rate? Because we are an organization.
It's a very strong group. It should be a strong lobby, which I guess is NAR.
Well, but NAR screwed up. I mean,
they screwed up royally. To be honest. Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing, it started in Missouri, in a little town in Missouri. I mean, the whole thing is...
Yeah, I don't think anyone really took it very seriously when the lawsuit was first filed. Like, who's going to win that? And it gathered momentum, and, there's just...
No, the lawyers went out, and they found other complainants, and that was it.
Well, people willing to say, that somehow they were harmed. But I would venture to guess that there are a lot more buyers and sellers that are unhappy with the outcome of the settlement, more so than, we're on the other end.
Yeah. I mean, look at buyers now. The pain is, again, to go back, I don't know how I'm going to fund this. The lenders really aren't clear of how it's going to be funded. So I either have to pay for it up front or I have to pay for it on the back end. And then if it's now a competitive offer, I'm not going to be able to add that in because it's going to lower my potential chances. And so it's not always doing the service that people intended. It's a good idea, but I think the execution
side of it, Shawn, is that I really think in a buyer's market, when it becomes, a very inventory heavy market, and buyers have a lot more, power on their side than they do right now. I think you're going to start seeing buyer's agent fees go way, way up, more so than, this amount. I mean, I remember right before the pandemic, we had so much inventory. We had so much inventory here. And, I think incentivizing buyer's agents, sellers are a little cocky right now because they've had it their way, but it's not going to be so.
We had a house in Greenwich, and the owner's a Wall Street guy, very bright, very successful, and he called Hyleri up and he said, "I'm not going to give a commission. I understand I don't have to now give."
No, he said to the buyer's agent.
I don't have to pay the buyer's agent anymore, and Hyleri patiently explained to him that that's fine. Nobody's going to come and look at your house.
Well, especially, it was a $6.5 million house. And most people don't buy $6.5 million properties that have representation, professional representation on one end, and be vulnerable and not have representation themselves. We didn't have anybody that came through that didn't already have a buyer's agent. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is Greenwich, Connecticut. There's plenty of other properties in this price range to choose from. And who do you think the buyer's agent is really going to, push them?
They're not coming to your house.
Unless they don't work for free.
He understood it, kept it to where it was, and in 2 weeks we sold it. It's.
And we offered a competitive buyer's agent.
Exactly.
Well, I think the other thing that people don't realize now with these buyers who are purchasing properties, we're comping properties that are potentially 2.5% to 3% inaccurate. Buyers are now overpaying and don't even know it.
Well, most buyers are so fearful of overpaying because they know that they're buying on the higher end of the market. Nobody knows where things will go. And it's kind of like, this is what the market is. This is what the market is. What's overpaying? It means paying more than the market price.
Well, that's always a tricky, you have 8 offers, and that's always a tricky conversation with buyers is there's basically 7 other people you're competing with. And so to beat them, you have to overpay 7 people.
Agreed.
And our job is to make sure that it's only marginally above.
The new norm. And that's what's happened. It sort of has. And prices have gone up, and it just keeps driving it up and up and up. I mean, and I don't think appraisers knew what to do because the market shot up so quickly. I've not had an appraisal, under appraise a property that, that it didn't at least appraise for value in a long time. And I'm constantly shocked at what appraisals have come back for as I've watched things go up.
I've only had 2, believe it or not, only 2 properties ever that came in low. And one was like, I think the
times, or was that pre-pandemic?
Lifetime.
That they can't. I mean, but those appraisers were those.
They were both a very aggressive market appreciation, and one fell short. I'm not exaggerating by $1,500, and my clients literally laughed and they're like, "We're just going to write a check. I don't even want to. I don't care to dispute it." So I don't know if that appraiser just had a little bug in their bonnet or whatever.
I've had a couple of appraisals come back low pre-pandemic, not in recent times. And I challenged them, and I had one where I was doing both sides of the deal, and they were giving. I mean, it really depends on the appraiser you get too. I mean, this guy the property was right at the beach, and they were using comps that were like way far out, definitely not like near the water, and it was such an apples to oranges situation that I was pretty confident that by challenging it, and I don't think a lot of realtors understand either and know that they can challenge. An appraisal, that they can, show. I had to come in with a CMA showing. We're doing CMAs on the front ends now to show people what the comps are before we even have them offer and understand, okay, where will you go to based on this knowledge? At least that information and education is good for them to understand that they may well be overpaying and they have to be okay with it. Because
and I don't know if this is a company compliance or what, but we actually not only print the CMA, but we have them sign it with the contract, so they're acknowledging this is what I professionally feel the value of the property is as you're moving forward.
Do you use RPR ever? I know we've talked about that.
We talked about it. I looked at it, and then
Yeah,
I haven't. I don't really use it too much. I feel like just too many platforms, so I don't use it. But I know it's a great tool, and you've raved about it.
I would suggest at least uploading the app, downloading the app, and taking a look. You already have access to it, and it's a real good. And I found it to be pretty accurate.
And it impresses our clients.
Yeah,
too.
that you can shoot it off quickly and say, okay, of course I need to see the property and I need to.
And then it's if they're not sure about the house, it's 1 or 2 stars. So they give you stars on
their confidence level with their prediction.
Oh, that's pretty intelligent.
And you can go in and see the comps they've used. So it is a good starting point, at least, even if it's not your ending point. It's a good tool.
Yeah. You guys, this has been awesome. We're actually way over time, which I'm not surprised that happened. I riff always so well with you guys, and
absolutely.
I love the conversation.
We do too.
So thank you. And Hyleri and Marc, you're welcome to join. I look forward to seeing you in the inner circle group of the mastermind group with all the past guests that we've had. So
yeah, on board there too.
Great.
Yeah, you're welcome to come.
Great, I would love it.
Well, Shawn, it was great. It was great talking, and I always enjoy our conversations. And thanks for having us.
And if you're thinking about opening a restaurant, call me.
Will do.